The jungle was alive. It moved, breathed, and hunted. Strange creatures growled from the shadows. The sky was dark with thick green clouds. The air smelled like blood and metal. A small group of alien Marines stood at the edge of a cliff, looking down at the chaos below. Their armor was bright silver, and their eyes were cold. They had no emotions, no fear. They were here for one reason: to watch the humans. "This is a death world," whispered one alien, scanning the forest with his visor. "Nothing survives here for long." But one human was already breaking that rule. His name was Reed Carter. A soldier from Earth. He was not the biggest, not the fastest. But something burned inside him. Something alien eyes could not understand. The alien Marines watched from above, hidden inside their invisible observation ship. They were here too. Study humans in battle to understand how these fragile beings survive the deadliest planets. This mission was not supposed to be dangerous. Just observe and record, then. The ambush happened. Reed's squad was moving through a broken valley when the ground exploded. Loud booms, smoke, and fire filled the jungle. Screams echoed. Sharp, insect-like monsters burst from underground. They had claws, black eyes, and a hunger for blood. The humans fought back. Bullets flew, grenades exploded. But they were outnumbered. Reed ran forward, shouting commands, pulling a wounded soldier to safety. Just as he turned back, a mine went off beneath him. Boom! His body flew through the air. Blood sprayed across the ground. His leg gone. The alien Marines gasped for the first time. "He should be dead," said one, zooming in on the human body. "That kind of injury kills most species." Reed lay on the ground, groaning in pain. His face was pale, his breath slow. Blood poured from the torn flesh. He reached down and touched where his leg used to be. Nothing was there, but then moved. First his fingers, then his arm. Slowly shaking, he pulled off his belt and wrapped it tight around his thigh. His face twisted in pain. He screamed through his teeth, but he didn't stop. One alien leaned forward. "He's making a tourniquet by himself?" Reed pulled himself up with one arm, grabbing a broken branch. He made a rough crutch. Every step was a nightmare. He left a trail of blood behind him. But he kept moving. The alien commander said nothing. He just stared at the screen. This is not logical. Reed's communicator was broken. His squad was gone, dead or captured. The monsters were still hunting. But he didn't sit and cry. He didn't wait to die. He dragged his body into the jungle, pushing forward like an angry ghost. Trees scratched his face. Bugs crawled on his skin. Every breath hurt. But in his mind, one thought screamed louder than pain. Keep going. The alien Marines followed his path from the sky. "Why does he continue?" one asked. "This is pointless. He has no leg. No chance." "Because he's human," the youngest Marine answered quietly. "They don't stop." Reed found a small cave under some rocks. He lit a fire with shaking hands. He ripped his shirt and tied it around his bleeding stump. The smell of burning flesh filled the air as he used heat to close the wound. He passed out from the pain. The alien ship recorded everything. Hours passed. Night fell. The jungle became louder. Bigger predators came out. But Reed's fire scared them for now. Suddenly, the fire flickered. A dark shape moved outside the cave. A shadow. Reed opened his eyes. Something was there, watching him. He grabbed the sharp stick and crawled to the entrance. His body was broken, but his eyes were wild. "Come on then," he whispered. "I'm not done yet." The shadow backed away. Far above, the alien commander sat in silence. "This changes everything," he said. Cliffhanger ending. The camera zoomed out. Reed sat alone, half dead, in the middle of a death world. He had no help. No leg, no backup. But he was alive, and that was terrifying. Asterisk, the rain came down like bullets. Sharp, cold, and unrelenting. Thick droplets hit the leaves, the rocks, the ground, and the broken body of Reed Carter as he crawled forward through the jungle mud. Every inch of his skin stung. His clothes were soaked. His wounds still half sealed from the fire had begun to bleed again. The jungle didn't care that he was human. It didn't care that he had already lost a leg. It didn't care that he was tired, in pain, or alone. It wanted to kill him. And it wanted to do it slowly. Reed dragged himself up onto a fallen tree trunk. His hands were shaking. Blood mixed with dirt on his fingertips. He paused only for a second to breathe, then moved again. Forward. Always forward. In the clouds above. Silent and invisible, the alien observation ship hovered like a ghost. Inside, the Marines were silent, eyes locked on the display screens. The human should have died hours ago. Logically, biologically, he had no business still being alive. But he was, and now something even more disturbing was happening. He wasn't just surviving. He was adapting. He's adjusting his movement to balance with the crutch, one alien said softly, pointing to the screen. With each step, his speed improves. The commander didn't reply. He just watched. Reed reached a cluster of trees with twisted roots, some growing in a spiral shape like bones reaching from the ground. He stopped near one and crouched low under a rock ledge. Water dripped from above onto his back. His breath came in short, sharp gasps. His mind drifted for a moment. A face appeared, his sister's. She was smiling. It was just a memory. He blinked it away. Then the sound came, a deep, low growl. It was behind him, close. Wet leaves shifted. Something heavy was moving. Reed froze. His fingers tightened around the sharpened stick he'd turned into a spear. His body screamed in pain, but he forced his muscles to still. His breath stopped. His eyes scanned the jungle shadows. The growl came again, closer. A shape stepped out from behind a tree. 8 feet tall, 4 glowing eyes. It was covered in armored scales, black as night, with long claws that dripped with poison. It had no lips, just sharp teeth wrapped around its tongue. It was a predator born to hunt, and right now it was staring directly at Reed. The Marines in the observation ship leaned forward. He cannot outrun it, one said. He cannot fight it, said another. But Reed didn't run. He didn't scream. He didn't freeze in fear. He smiled. The predator stepped closer. Slowly. It was confused. This prey wasn't running like the others. It raised its head and sniffed. It could smell blood, fear, exhaustion, but something else was there too. Something. That didn't make sense. Determination. Reed moved. Not away, but toward it. In one fast, painful motion, he stabbed the spear forward. The beast roared, slashing its claws at him. Reed dropped low, rolled mud flying everywhere, and jabbed again. This time, the stick went deep into the beast's leg. It howled, but it wasn't over. The creature swiped hard. Its claw cut across Reed's chest, sending him flying backward into the roots of a tree. His back hit hard. His vision blurred. Blood ran from his mouth. The spear broke. Still, he got back up. The alien Marines were silent. Reed pulled out a flare from his vest. It was small, his last one. He lit it and threw it near the beast's face. A burst of red fire flashed through the rain, and the creature screamed, blinded. Reed crawled toward it, not away. He grabbed a rock. Big, heavy, and he swung. 1, 2, 3 times. The monster's roars grew weaker, then stopped. Reed collapsed beside it, his breath rough and shallow. Inside the ship, the youngest Marine whispered, "He killed it, with one leg, and a rock." The commander didn't blink. He adapts, he hunts, he suffers. But he doesn't surrender. They all watched in stunned silence as Reed used the creature's own claws to cut open its belly. He reached in, pulled out warm tissue, and wrapped it around his leg wound to stop the bleeding, Primitive, brutal, effective. He didn't cry. He didn't scream. He just stood, leaning against a tree, his eyes scanning the jungle once more. Still. Alert. Still alive. Still moving. The alien Marines weren't scientists anymore. They weren't observers. They were now students. Because in that rain-soaked jungle, on a world where everything was meant to kill, one human had become something more. Not a soldier. Not a man, a force. And the jungle, the Deathworld itself, was learning to fear him. The rain had stopped, but the jungle was still dripping. Water fell from thick leaves like slow tears. Steam rose from the wet earth. Somewhere in the distance, a creature screamed a long, hollow sound that echoed like a warning. Reed Carter. Sat against a tree, eyes half closed, skin pale, body trembling. His chest still burned where the claws had ripped through it. His leg stump was wrapped in creature flesh and tied with jungle vines. The bleeding had slowed, but not stopped. Every beat of his heart felt like a hammer hitting the edge of his. Life. He reached up slowly and wiped blood from his lip. Then he laughed, low and bitter. Still here, he whispered to no one. High above, inside the invisible alien vessel, the Marines watched. No one spoke anymore, not even the commander. Their screens were filled with Reed's broken body, still moving, still alive. Inside Reed's head, memories drifted like ghosts. He saw fire, smoke, his squad, Jackson's voice on the radio. Then, the explosion again, the mine, his leg, the pain, the moment he thought he would die. But then, he didn't. His eyes opened fully now. The jungle was quiet. Too quiet. Reed pulled himself to his feet, using the tree for support. He crafted a stronger crutch from a fallen branch, tied together with strips of his ruined shirt. It wasn't perfect, but it held. He took one step, then another. Then another. The ground ahead sloped downward into a dark valley. A thick mist moved between the trees like smoke. He didn't know what was down there, but he knew one thing: it was his only path forward. The ship above adjusted position, following silently. In the command room, one of the Marines finally spoke. This planet is the fourth deadliest cataloged world in this sector. Why is he still alive? No one answered. Reed moved slowly into the mist. The trees here were tall and covered in glowing moss. Strange whispers came from the fog, like voices. Not meant for human ears. He ignored them. His focus was sharp. Each step was a decision. Every breath was earned. After an hour of walking, he stopped at a small clearing. A dead tree stood in the center, blackened and twisted. Around it, dozens of bones, animal, human, unidentifiable, lay scattered in the grass. Reed stepped carefully. He was not surprised. Danger was normal now. Then he heard it. Not a growl. Not a roar. Laughter. It was human, but twisted, cold, mocking. He spun, lifting his crutch like a weapon. From the mist, a figure emerged. It was Jackson. His uniform was clean, his face unscarred. He smiled at Reed. About time you showed up, Jackson said. Reed blinked. You died, Jackson shrugged. Not really. Not yet. Or maybe you're dreaming. Reed stepped back. His breath caught in his throat. Jackson tilted his head. You think you're still in control, Reed. You're not. This world is inside your head now. Reed closed his eyes and shook his head. No, you're not real. Jackson smiled wider. Neither is that leg. But it still hurts, doesn't it? Reed opened his eyes again. Jackson was gone. The mist cleared slightly. It was hallucination. Fever, blood loss. He knew it, but it felt real. Too real. He dropped to his knees. Sweat rolled down his face. The infection was spreading. His body was burning. He needed shelter, water, rest. But there was no time. From behind the trees came footsteps. Multiple. Heavy. Not human. Reed grabbed his crutch and backed away. His heart raced. Shadows moved in the fog, large shapes. 6 legs, clicking sounds. Alien predators different from the one he had killed. These moved like hunters. They had a system. Reed knew he couldn't outrun them. He had one option. He reached into his pack, now nearly empty, and pulled out a broken piece of metal from the earlier crash, sharp on one end. Strong enough to cut. He waited. The creatures stepped into the clearing, their eyes glowing orange, their jaws clicked open. They didn't charge. They circled. They were playing with him. Reed took a deep breath. "Let's play then," he said. He limped forward. He slashed at the first one. It dodged. The second came in from the side. He turned and stabbed low. The metal pierced the creature's side. It screeched and jumped back. The third pounced. Reed fell to the ground, rolled, and jammed the crutch into its throat. A mess of sound, blood, and fury exploded in the clearing. The aliens above watched in silence. Then, slowly, the youngest Marine spoke. "He should be dead. But he's learning how to fight like them." "No," the commander said. "He's learning how to fight better." Below, Reed crawled from the pile of bodies. His arm was bleeding, his ribs likely broken. But he was breathing. He looked up at the sky. He didn't know they were watching. But part of him, some ancient instinct, knew he was being seen. So he gave them something to remember. He raised the bloodied piece of metal high. And he screamed. Into the jungle with all the rage, pain, and strength he had left. A sound not of fear, but of war. The jungle had changed. It was no longer just dangerous. It was watching. The fog had thinned, but the air remained heavy. Reed Carter moved slowly, dragging his broken body across moss-covered roots and damp rocks. His shirt was ripped, his skin torn, his eyes sunken, but they still burned. The kind of fire that couldn't be taught. Behind him, 3 alien creatures lay dead, their blood steaming on the ground. Around him, the jungle had gone strangely silent. Far above, inside the observation ship, the alien Marines no longer stood still like machines. They leaned closer to the screens now. The youngest among them, barely out of his first cycle of training, watched with something no one expected. Respect. Reed stumbled near a shallow stream. He dropped to his knees and cupped water in trembling hands. It tasted like metal and ash, but it was enough. He drank, then washed the blood from his face. He saw his reflection for the first time since the ambush. What stared back was barely human, eyes rimmed in red. Cheek hollow, beard overgrown. Face covered in blood, dirt, and ash. But it wasn't weakness he saw. It was survival, and something else. He had gone beyond pain, beyond logic. He was becoming something the jungle couldn't break. The alien commander finally spoke. "Prepare a medical capsule." One of the Marines turned. "To retrieve him?" "No," the commander said. "To keep him alive. If he survives this planet, he may become the only thing we've ever feared." Reed pulled himself up and moved forward again. Each step was a negotiation with death. But he kept going. He found a fallen alien drone hidden beneath vines. Burned and crushed, but its power core still blinked softly. With effort, he pried it open, using a rock and a knife. Sparks flew. Wires twisted like veins. Reed wasn't a technician. But he had something. Better. Desperation. With trembling fingers, he rerouted the charge to his old emergency beacon. The light blinked once, then again. Weak but alive, a signal. A whisper into the stars. He didn't know if anyone would hear it. He didn't care. He had done his part. He had screamed into the void. Now he had to stay alive long enough to matter. But the jungle wasn't done testing him. As he climbed toward higher ground, the sky began to darken again. Not from rain, but from something worse. Storm clouds. But not normal ones. The aliens recognized the shift first. "Magnetic lightning storm approaching," one said. "It will kill anything on the ground without shielding." The commander narrowed. His eyes, Does he know? He can't. Humans don't detect that frequency. On the screen, looked up. He didn't understand the science. But instinct kicked in. The trees were bending unnaturally. The air sparked against his skin. The jungle birds had vanished. He knew something was coming, and it wasn't going to be slow. Reed moved faster. His body objected. His leg throbbed. His vision blurred. But he pushed through the pain, one broken step at a time. He spotted a crack. In the mountainside. A small cave, barely wide enough to crawl into. He dropped his crutch and pulled himself through with raw strength and teeth clenched. The first bolt struck. A thunderclap louder than a bomb ripped through the sky. Trees exploded in flame. The ground shook. Inside the cave, Reed wrapped himself in wet vines and curled into the stone. Outside, the sky tore itself apart. Electric blue light painted the jungle like a nightmare. Bolts of plasma carved through the forest, turning everything to ash. Inside the ship, alarms went off. His heart rate is dropping. Blood pressure crashing. He's not going to make it. But the commander stared at the screen. Watched. Reed's hand curled into a fist. He will. Hours passed, then. Silence. The storm ended as quickly as it had begun. Smoke rose from the ground. The forest was blackened, hollow. Then something moved. A hand, covered in ash. Reed pulled himself from the cave. His skin was burned, his lips cracked. His body barely able to crawl, but he was alive. And now, he was angry. He looked around at the destruction. This planet's trying to kill me, he muttered. Get in line, he laughed. A dry, broken sound. Not out of joy, out of defiance. The jungle had given him every reason to die. And now, it had run out of ideas. He stood, leaning against the rock wall. Lightning scarred the ground around him. Smoke curled in the air. He tore a strip from the sleeve and wrapped his bleeding arm. The Deathworlder didn't need comfort. He didn't need rest. He needed only one thing. A reason to keep moving. And he had one. Far away. A piece of broken transmission flickered on a marine screen. It was Reed's voice. Rough. Broken, but strong. If anyone's listening, I'm not dead yet. The aliens looked at each other. The jungle had tried, but it had failed. And now, for the first time, it was the planet that should be afraid, because the Deathworlder was still walking, and he was not done yet. The jungle had grown quiet again, but it wasn't peace. It was fear. The kind of silence that settles when a predator enters the domain of other predators. The Deathworld no longer looked at Reed Carter like prey. It watched him the way broken animals watch a wounded wolf, torn, bleeding, but still walking. And walking he was. Every step was a battle. The jungle floor felt like a sponge of blood and ash. Trees stood like black skeletons from the storm that had passed, lightning having carved deep scars through the land. Reed moved through the wreckage with one arm gripping a crutch and the other dragging his remaining gear. His body trembled, yet his pace was steady. His eyes didn't blink much anymore. Not because he didn't feel pain, because pain had become his rhythm. Each heartbeat, each breath, was wrapped in it. The sky above was overcast, thick clouds hiding the alien ship that floated silently above him. Inside, the Marines monitored Reed's vitals, his path, his voice logs, but something had changed in them too. They were no longer watching the human. They were witnessing something becoming legend. One of them leaned over and whispered to another, "Why hasn't he broken yet?" The youngest among them, barely old enough to have seen a real battle, answered softly, "Maybe he already did." And whatever came out on the other side, it doesn't know how to stop. Reed found the broken remains of another drone. This one had been shot down during the initial ambush, likely by friendly fire. It was half buried in mud, one of its lens eyes still glowing dimly. He knelt beside it and began taking it apart with fingers more bone than flesh. He didn't fully understand the tech, but he didn't need to. He had studied enough, scavenged enough. Wires, casing, power coils, it was like taking apart a dead animal to make a spear. He only needed what worked. Within the hour, he had something. A homemade beacon booster, a signal flare, and if luck didn't betray him, a battery strong enough to power his pulse knife. He strapped it to his chest and looked to the horizon. A ridge of black rock, jagged like teeth, rose in the distance. Beyond it, his original drop zone. A place with food, shelter, medical supplies, maybe even survivors. He started walking, but the jungle wasn't done with him yet. Movement in the trees, fast, silent. He stopped. Listened. Breathing. But not his own. They came fast, 3 of them, moving like shadows with limbs. Their skin was armored, black with streaks of green. Their eyes glowed dim blue, and their claws were soaked in poison. Reed didn't run. He dropped to one knee and drew the drone power coil from his bag. He slammed it into the pulse knife, overloading the circuit. Sparks flew. The blade hissed to life. Blue energy danced across the edge of the weapon. It wouldn't last long, 10 seconds, maybe 12, but it would be enough. The first creature lunged. Reed sidestepped, twisted, and drove the blade straight into its neck. Bones shattered. The creature shrieked and thrashed, collapsing in seconds. The second came from behind. Reed spun, but not fast enough. The claws raked across his back. He cried out, fell forward, and rolled into a patch of thorny roots. His vision flashed. Not with pain, with fury. He exploded upward, ignoring the blood pouring from his back. The blade screamed as he swung wide, slicing the second predator across its face. The energy sparked on contact. Flesh burned. The third creature hesitated. That was its mistake. Reed didn't wait. He threw his crutch. The creature ducked. Reed charged. Anyway, he jumped on one leg and jammed the pulse knife into its eye as they both fell to the ground. When the dust settled, Reed lay flat, panting hard, the knife flickering out beside him. His chest rose and fell like a dying engine, but his eyes stayed open. He got back up. Of course he did. Inside the ship, the alien commander stood from his station. He improvises with broken tech, overloads weapons, builds tools from nothing. This is not just instinct. This is strategy. He fights like he has something to prove, said another Marine. The commander turned. No, he fights like the universe owes him revenge. They all looked again at the screen. Reed was climbing the black ridge now. His body swayed, bloody and burnt, but his hands gripped the stone with purpose. Every pull upward was an act of war. Against the jungle. Against death itself. And then, for the first time in days, he saw it. The crash zone, or what was left of it. Smoke still curled from burned-out husks. A piece of the drop ship's wing jutted from the ground like a metal grave marker. Charred remains. Abandoned gear. And just barely something blinking red. A med crate. Reed slid down the ridge and limped toward it. He didn't run. He didn't crawl. He walked. He reached the crate. Opened it. Inside, painkillers, bandages, emergency fluid packs. He sat down next to it. And finally allowed himself to breathe. But only for a moment, because as he patched himself up, a sound echoed in the distance. Engines. Not friendly. Something else was coming. Not creatures this time. Machines. Troop. Ships. Unmarked. Enemy. The jungle was finished trying to kill him. Now someone had sent backup to finish the job. Reed. Carter tightened the bandage on his arm. He looked up at the darkening sky. Come on. Then, he said under his breath, I'm still here. The wind had changed. It was no longer the hot, thick breath of the jungle, nor the silent pressure before a storm. It carried something colder, sharper, the smell of metal, fuel, and war. Reed Carter lay still under the half-burnt shell of an escape pod, listening. He could feel it in his bones. Vibration. Distant, steady. Engines. Military ones. Not natural movement like animals or monsters. These were human-made, but they weren't his. He reached slowly into the med crate beside him, pulled out a stim injector, and stabbed it into his thigh. A surge of energy pulsed through his veins. His heart jumped, his eyes focused. Pain became background noise. For a few minutes his broken body felt awake again. He stood up and stepped into the open, dragging his crutch with him. From the top of the ridge, he could finally see what was coming. 3 black dropships, silent, sleek, no lights. No insignias, not Earth military. Not allies. Mercenaries. Killers. Hired shadows sent to clean up the mess. And Reed Carter was the mess. Inside the invisible observation ship floating above, the alien Marines turned their attention to the new arrivals. Scanners lit up with life readings. Dozens, well-armed. Heat signatures were strong, no injuries, no damage. A perfect extraction. Team, they were not sent to rescue him, said one Marine. The commander nodded. No, they're here to erase the evidence of human resilience. The youngest Marine leaned forward. What will he do? The commander didn't look away from the screen. What he always does. Reed was already moving. He knew the jungle better than them now. He knew the traps, the hiding spots, the paths carved by monsters. His body was weak, yes, but his mind was sharper than ever. And for the first time since the ambush, he wasn't just reacting, he was planning. Within the next hour, the mercenary team fanned out across the crash site. Their armor was smooth black, matte finish to avoid glare. Their helmets scanned thermal signatures. Their weapons were designed to kill with precision. Reed watched them from the trees above. He waited. Studied. Counted. 8 soldiers. 5 near the med zone. 3 moving through the perimeter. He didn't have bullets. He didn't have backup, but he had something no mercenary could. Download. Experience. The jungle had taught him. Now it would serve him. He slid down from the tree and landed behind one of the perimeter soldiers, silent as falling ash. He didn't hesitate. He jammed a sharpened bone dagger carved from a creature's claw into the back of the soldier's neck joint. One twist. No sound. He dragged the body into the shadows, took the helmet, took the rifle, took the boots, became a ghost in there. Ranks. Minutes passed. Another soldier disappeared. Then another. The mercenaries started to panic. This jungle's cursed. One of them muttered, looking around. Something's hunting us, said another. They were right. It wasn't a jungle beast this time. It was Reed Carter. He was using their own gear against them, ambushing from shadows, disappearing into fog, reappearing in places no injured man should be. Inside the alien ship, the Marine commander stood motionless. He's not just surviving, said one observer. He's dominating. He is becoming a weapon, said another. No, the commander corrected, his voice cold. He is the weapon. Down below, Reed finally faced the last 2 mercenaries. They stood back to back near the bird escape pod, scanning wildly. He stepped out of the shadows. They fired. Bullets hit air. Reed moved with brutal grace, using terrain and timing like extensions of his body. A low dive, a strike, a sweep of the legs. A head slammed into a rock. And then there was one. The last mercenary backed away, hands raised. Wait, we were just following orders. Reed stared at him. Blood dripping from his jaw. One eye nearly swollen shut. But his hand didn't tremble. He picked up the mercenary's comms device and spoke into it. If you're listening, he growled, don't send another team. Then he crushed it beneath his boot. He didn't kill the last man. He left him, not out of mercy but as a message. An echo of fear. Within hours, the last dropship left orbit, escaping without orders, leaving behind the one man they were supposed to kill. And above the clouds, inside the ship of silent alien Marines, a decision was being made. They had studied hundreds of species, watched thousands of battles, documented every form of bravery, madness, and intelligence across the stars. But this This human was something different. The commander turned away from the screen and spoke. "Prepare for contact. We're bringing him aboard." "He's not stable," said one. "He's more than unstable," said another. The commander nodded. "Exactly. He's no longer part of a species we understand. He's something else." He looked back at the screen one last time. Reed Carter sat alone, surrounded by scorched jungle, broken metal, and silent dead. And yet, he sat tall. He wasn't a survivor anymore. He was a storm, and the galaxy was about to feel his fury. Asterisk. The stars were shifting. High above the burning jungle, the silent alien ship finally broke its cloaking field. Light shimmered in the sky like glass cracking in slow motion. For days it had watched, recorded, judged. But now it had made a decision. Below, Reed Carter sat by the smoldering wreckage of the last dropship engine, his crutch planted beside him like a war banner. The bodies of mercenaries lay scattered. The air still carried the sour smoke of plasma, fire, and alien blood. But Reed wasn't watching the bodies anymore. He was watching the sky. His eyes didn't widen in fear when he saw the shimmering ship above the trees. He didn't reach for a weapon. He just stood, because Reed Carter had nothing left to prove to himself, only to the galaxy. The alien vessel descended silently, massive and dark, casting a cold shadow over the jungle. Trees bent under its pressure. Animals fled. The world itself seemed to pause. A platform extended from its underside, humming with energy. Reed didn't move. The platform touched the ground, and from it, they came. Alien Marines, tall and armored, stepped forward in perfect silence. Their faces were unreadable behind their helmets. Their weapons were sheathed, their movements precise. They didn't come to kill. They came to witness. The lead alien stopped just meters from Reed. No words were spoken for a long time. Then the alien commander removed his helmet. His skin was gray-blue, eyes dark like glass, voice like distant thunder. "You are not like the others," he said quietly. Reed's voice was low, rough. "You watched me suffer, bleed, burn." "Yes," the alien said, "and now you come down." "Why?" The commander didn't blink. "Because you are no longer a subject. You are an event." Reed narrowed his eyes. "You think I'm a weapon?" The commander looked around at the field of destruction. "No, a weapon is made. You were forged." A heavy silence fell again. The wind picked up. The jungle behind them hissed with its usual menace, but it no longer felt as threatening. The commander gestured toward the ship. "Come with us, not as an experiment, not as prey, but as a revelation." Reed didn't answer. He looked around one last time at the trees, the broken tech, the blood-soaked earth. All of it had tried to end him. None of it had succeeded. Took a slow breath and stepped forward, crutch dragging behind him. His limp was heavy, but his presence was heavier. When he passed the alien Marines, they moved aside, not as soldiers to a superior, but as warriors to a legend. Inside the ship, clean air returned to his lungs. For the first time in days, he wasn't bleeding. But the war wasn't over. Because the real war hadn't even started yet. The ship lifted into the clouds. Behind it, the Deathworld burned quietly, as if ashamed. On board, Reed stood before the observation deck, watching the stars return. The commander approached him again. "We've monitored 1,000 species, watched them rise, watched them fall. But humanity, it refuses both. It survives even when survival is a curse." Reed didn't look away. "We don't survive because we're strong. We survive because we don't stop." The commander tilted his head. "Then you're not just human anymore. You are something we have no word for." Reed gave a half smile. "We have a word for it on Earth." "What is it?" He turned, eyes sharp, voice steady. "Hope." The room fell silent again. Then behind them, a siren. Not a danger warning, a call. A signal. had been received. Another world. Another death. Another war. The commander looked to Reed. We can send our own soldiers, he said. Reed shook his head. No, you'll send me. You're injured. I'm awake, Reed replied. That's enough. The commander gave a slow nod. Then from this day forward, let the archives remember, when the jungle failed, when the monsters lost, when machines were broken, one man kept walking. He extended a hand. Not in peace. In respect. Reed took it. And the legend was sealed. They say that across the stars now, when Deathworlds are named and whispered among explorers, there is always one warning, a quiet phrase spoken with caution. If you ever find a man, one-legged, half-dead and smiling, run. Because that's not a survivor. That's Reed Carter, the Deathworlder. Who wouldn't die? And some things don't survive the jungle. Some things become it.